Hello and welcome to another episode of Millennial TV. I am extra excited today because we are hosting a producer from the iconic show The Hills. I'd like to welcome Mr. Andrew Perry to the podcast. Andrew worked as a producer on the first season of The Hills and then moved into supervising producer on seasons 2 and 3. So Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today.
We're
my
so
pleasure.
Excited.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I look forward to talking with you.
We are very excited to get some of our burning questions answered here. So
I'll do all that
I can. So The Hills is just one of those iconic millennial shows that we and tons of fans everywhere can't let go of. So we've gathered some questions from our listeners on Reddit and Instagram, and we can't wait to get them answered. So let's get into it.
I'll do all that I can.
So can you take us back to the beginning and tell us a bit about how you became a producer on The Hills?
Sure. I've worked at MTV for a number of years producing other shows, some comedy shows, dating shows, things like that. And I was brought into shows sometimes to fix them too. We'd shot them and they weren't fantastic, unfortunately, and I would be brought in to help them along. And Laguna Beach was the second season, I think, had been shot. And they wanted to turn the triangle between Steven, Kristen, and Lauren into a movie, like a 90-minute film. And so I was brought in to look at all of that footage and to look at footage that hadn't been used in the show.
To try to turn it
into, yeah, exactly.
That would have been iconic.
After we edited it, they decided that it recast the relationship and it made it feel like the people who'd seen it the first time around would feel like we'd manipulated things. So that never lived, and I have no idea where it is. It's in wow. pre-digital days. So I knew the Laguna people. Adam DeVello was working down the hallway on the pilot. I guess this must have been season 3 of Laguna, on the pilot for The Hills. And so his editor, my editor, we would all talk. It was just happenstance. I got along with Adam. I really liked the pilot. When the show went, he brought me on as a producer. Does that sound like a good story?
That's cool. Yeah. You gave us something new we didn't know about that 90-minute movie.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
I'm sure that's in some vault somewhere. But it was just, and we had new VO for Lauren, and it was also from Lauren's point of view. It wasn't from Kristen's. And when, I'm not sure if anyone's talked about this, when Laguna ended, they obviously knew they had a hit on their hands, MTV. And I think that it might have first gone to Kristen, not The Hills, but just a continuation of a show with her as herself. And she, I think I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I'm assuming she was fed up with MTV. And that's why she went and did another show. I'm not sure if you guys are even familiar with it. It might be called Let's Get This Party Started.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. It was on, I want to say it's on Fox maybe. Anyway, she would go around America, as she does, and go to parties and they would film them. Anyway. So, wow. So I'm not saying, I want to make sure that it wasn't The Hills yet. It was a continuation show. And then when she said no, then it was like, well, we want more. And then that's when Adam thought up The Hills.
So you guys didn't peg Lauren as being a star right away and moving into The Hills?
She was in the pilot and we knew that it was going to be her show. And she, although you don't call it the Lauren Conrad show, it's like, that Carrie is the main character in
Sex in the City.
Yeah, Sex in the City. And that Adam had imagined this as a story of young women, not unlike Sex in the City, but moving to LA to try to make it in the industry. And we knew she was our hero, but we weren't, it's like any show. You're not like, hey, you're the hero, and you guys are the people who hang around her. That doesn't make good TV, we found.
Did you all think that it was going to be successful and popular as Laguna Beach?
Well, I mean, it surpassed Laguna. But anyway, yes. At the time, it was a different time at MTV. MTV was gigantic, and the shows got huge numbers. And so I thought, oh, this will be an interesting show. I really liked it. I loved that we were in LA. I loved that we were out of high school. And, I think in any show you go into a first season, you're hoping, but you don't know how the audience is going to, even if it's more Lauren and you loved Lauren, you don't know if the audience is going to find it. I will say, yeah, we'd shot down, I didn't work on Laguna, but I went down for a couple of shoots once. And then we also shot Lauren at her home. And it's a slightly different vibe, and that's a different show. I mean, I know you watch them and they feel similar, but it was a different mindset in how to tell stories too.
And you specified being a producer on season 1 and then a supervising producer on seasons 2. So since we're not in that world, can you tell us what the difference is between those two roles?
Some money. So in the world of reality, it sort of goes PA, production assistant, associate producer, producer, supervising producer, co-executive producer, and then the boss, who's the executive producer or showrunner. And some shows, ultimately, the longer they run, more people are executive producers. I had run shows and been a supervising producer before The Hills. And Adam was like, you can come on, but you can be a producer. So it was like, fine. It was fine. No, he's a super smart guy, and it was just like a negotiation. And so the roles that I did 3.5 seasons were all the same. It was just the title. Like there isn't a huge on The Hills. There wasn't a huge hierarchy beyond Adam DeVello's the boss, and here's where here's where you and your crew are. Here's where production management is. Yeah, the titles I gave you are just sort of for field production. There's also post-production, which is story editors, story producers, editors. And the first seasons, I mean, that's what's sort of nice about The Hills. It had a lot of money and it had a lot of support from the network. So no one was going to let it fail. I don't mean that that's not why it got a second season, but people were invested in it. And so it got more money than maybe, How to Date Your Mom or some show like that. Not to put down that show.
Hey, I loved that show.
So it's a process. But what was unique about The Hills, just in the making of it, is that people in the field would also, and I was one of them, would also go into post. And that helped. Right now on most shows, only the showrunner will do that. And sometimes not that. Like Housewives, as an example, they start editing it probably the second week they start shooting it. And there's somebody in whatever city they're in, but there's somebody running the show and there's somebody running post. We had that in LA, but the upside was we're shooting in LA. And because Housewives is different, but we also had appointment shooting. We were shooting 3, sometimes 4 days a week, but not all the time. Not, it's not real world. You're not, oh my God, they're going to the store. We've got to follow them. There was none of, there was none of that.
And so with you being on the post-production side, did you have input or say into creating more drama for the episodes?
Well, that's what it was about. I mean, that's what The Hills is, and so was Laguna, but I think if Laguna is sort of the alpha of a reality show without interviews, then the beta and what got better was The Hills, in that we honed all the skills we had, and there was a lot of Laguna staff that came onto The Hills, and so they had methods that worked really well. And so I mention all this because the joy you get from watching The Hills, and then I get rewatching it too, is because hours of time went into it in post-production. Like you're polishing it, you're looking for very subtle moments of eye movement, of head turns, the way I like to start this usually is we're not making a documentary, we're making a television show, and we're trying to find the biggest audience we can, and through our storytelling. So you would watch rough cuts and think, oh, that seems pretty good. But then you would know, A, it's too long, and B, I'm not sure what goes on in it. I mean, not to, pull back the curtain too much, but we would use scenes the way other shows use interview bites. Mm-hmm. So an interview bite might just be, I'm going to the party tonight and I hope Jason's not there. Well, we didn't have the luxury of hearing Lauren say that, or Heidi, or whoever. So we would do a scene where someone says that to another person, and you get the same amount of information.
Yeah, to set things up.
Yeah, to set it right. Yeah. So I hope that answers. But if you're not, I mean, I was looking at my notes as before I came, and I thought, I should. So we had we had a thing called the two dudes scene. And it was
why do we already know what's happening?
You know it?
We feel like we know it because there's always two dudes playing a sport or doing something.
If you got a two dudes scene, A, they can't be sitting down, they can't be at a table, and they're the crew, more or less, you'd take bets on, I bet this will never make the show. Because nothing against any of our male cast members, and I'm being sincere, you're not projecting into them the same way you do with the four women cast members. And so you see, Brian and Jason doing something, and you're like, this is when we're shooting it. You're like, how do we bring this to life? And then you're in the edit, and you're like, I don't.
I love that you're talking about that, because we always are like, why are we seeing these men play basketball again?
Yeah, they're always golfing.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I think, was a real golfer. Brian and Jordan, I don't know if they really play basketball, but it was just like, I think it was also subtly in our storytelling, we want to keep the focus on Lauren, Heidi, Audrina, and Whitney. And so when you go to a scene with two guys, you're thinking, well, what you're thinking, why am I watching this? Why do I care? And can we make it shorter? Those are the And we shot a lot of great stuff. Like, we shot something with Jordan getting ready for a party. I think it was it New Year's? I think with his dad in town. It was very heartwarming as you're filming it, but you're like, no.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't all be perfect.
Yeah.
So season 1, watching it back, that felt like the most real season for us for the most part, like the relationship drama and the work drama. It felt more real than the other seasons. So going into season 2, we have Spencer and Brody now, and it starts with Heidi taking a pregnancy test, which we felt like is something that would never have happened in season 1. So was there like a conscious shift from production side of creating more drama for season 2, or like what was the thought process behind that?
It never came down to us that way. So it wasn't, I don't think Adam, was talking to Liz and Tony, Liz Gately, and Tony DeSanto, who were the people who ran MTV. And they're like, you need your numbers up, or we should crank it up. I think it's a natural evolution of our storytelling, sincerely, that, I mean, if you look at the first season, the first episode is don't sit in this area at a party. Mm-hmm, I mean, that although it's great, and Lauren took it seriously, that doesn't, that doesn't pull the viewers in, I would say. Okay. And I think in Heidi, who I think is a really great cast member, she had a willingness to show more of her life, I think, than Lauren did. Mm-hmm. You're never going to be in the bathroom with someone unless you've planned it,
right.
We're not. But again, it's not real world, and even real world doesn't shoot in the bathroom. So I would use the word, we've thought about it more, and we realized the show that we were making was evolving. I mean, I know that might feel like a rationalization, but it didn't come out of thin air, like, I think you've interviewed her. Our Sophia Rossi, our talent producer, she would get the information from the cast, and we would figure out ways to weave it into the story as naturally as we could. Mm. So it's not like, 8 guys or 8 people in a room, throwing darts of, Heidi's pregnant. That'd be a great season opener. So I'm sure the reality of that was within, 10 minutes. It wasn't, I think when you think you're pregnant, you want to know either way very quickly. You're not waiting for a crew or a season to start.
Right. We also felt like Spencer kind of had his producer hat on, like once he joined the cast. Yeah. So was it him stirring the pot between Heidi and Audrina, or was that produced, or was that just like him doing that?
Okay, so before he came on the show, he was on Princes of Malibu with Brody, which is a show that one of our co-executive producers, or executive producer, Sean Travis, had worked on. So he knew Spencer and Brody as people. Mm-hmm. And they, in season 1, I'm not sure if it was Brody as much. Spencer, I think before he started going out with Heidi, he was around in the scene that we were in of Les Deux, or, I mean, I'm not even sure if we went there first season, but whatever clubs we were going to, you knew about him, or he was around. And so I think he wanted to be on the show. I'm not saying that his attraction, obviously they're married, they have kids, it still has worked out, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. I think he was, because of this previous experience, he was conscious of, A, I need to get on the show, and B, here's a method to do it. And luckily, it's very much who he is, mm-hmm. But I don't think he didn't land, in a parachute. Do you know what I mean? Like, he didn't fly in, right? Hey, bring in Spencer. Oh, he doesn't work out. We have another angry kid who can, whatever it is. Right. It was just, there was a naturalness to it. Heidi was, they obviously were attracted to each other. And he also knew, if I'm hanging around and milquetoast, I'm not going to have as long a time on the show. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, But that's all. I mean, I don't want to give him motives that he didn't have. I mm-hmm. think there's a lot of real stuff that we caught. I think we just, we made it look really pretty.
I like to say that Spencer understood the assignment. He just understood it, and it ended up, working out the way that it worked out. I think the biggest storyline in seasons 2 and 3 is obviously the Lauren, Heidi, Spencer fallout. What was it like behind the scenes during this time? Was it hostile? Was it, did Lauren ever push back on filming?
Not that I don't think I've ever. Lauren would say I'm not available, but she didn't push back like I can't film this week if it was something, unless it was something like she was going out of town or it was something. No, I think as the show got more successful, trying to manage 4 different people's schedules became, there were people who were doing it full time. We had full-time people doing that. So in answer to your question, no, because I think Lauren really liked Heidi. I think she really liked her as a roommate, and she really found the beginning of that relationship a true mystery. And that whole, he's a sketchy guy, or whatever the line is. That was all real. That was all, and I think Heidi took it a little more like, who are you to be controlling who I date? Again, and that's my language. I think once we got into the place where there were the rumors of Spencer talking about what was the sex tape, and that then turned it up into a totally different arena of him, Jason, and Lauren obviously were like, this is, you're screwing things up and you're turning this into something that isn't true. And then you're busting up the Heidi-Lauren friendship. The night of You Know What You Did is all real. That night, you can watch the show and you realize it's real. Guys have cameras on their shoulders. Usually the cameras are on tripods, and the action happens in front of the camera. And there was action happening at Les Deux that wasn't in front of the camera. And so you heard people on walkie-talkies go, oh my God, I think Heidi's here. Okay. So when we shoot, you schedule the shoot. So if we were going to shoot with the three of you, we would work it out and we would all go to Les Deux that night. But then if magically I show up and you weren't expecting me, and the producers haven't told you, then it becomes it becomes a shock. So Heidi came knowing we were shooting, but she wasn't scheduled to shoot that night. So Lauren, I think, was like, what's Heidi doing here? And is this some sort of, is production screwing with me? Which we weren't. Which we weren't, and she knew that. I mean, she ultimately knew that. And then Heidi was in, hey, I'm in confrontational land. And I truly don't know what's going through her head at that moment. But that was all, that and all the fallout after was real. And I will say the show uses a lot of tricks. We might shoot something that plays before Christmas, but we shot it after Christmas. And, we would play with timelines. But that night, nobody was playing. Like, we weren't panning the camera to make it look real or live. It was a real event of people shouting at each other on our show. And at the time, no one was, we weren't back there high-fiving. We were thinking, this looks horrible for us, the aesthetics of it, not the argument. And are we even going to be able to make out this story? Because the idea of bringing in the rumor of Spencer's into our story, because it was sort of this outside Us Magazine world, it was like, well, does that wreck the show? Does that change who's telling the story?
Yeah.
And those were all the things we were thinking at the time.
Yeah. Did Spencer face any repercussions from you guys behind the scenes?
Not that I know of. I know that other cast members at times have said they wanted to come to shoots. And it's like, well, this isn't a scene that you're in, but they've wanted to come. But I can't think of any of those that we used. So Spencer, by the time this happened, I think, were they already living together?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, I think they were.
Where he spray painted the wall.
Yes.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That mural.
Iconic, but oh gosh.
Yeah. So we're not their parents. We're not reining them in. We're setting up, telling stories about their lives that we've learned from Sophia Rossi, and we're trying to put that in front of the camera. If Spencer wants to add something else, another beat into a scene, have at it. We're not encouraging the things that it turned into. It's just like that first scene with him where he confronts whoever Heidi's working with and he sort of gets in the kid's face. That was super not planned. And we're on the walkie and it's like a fight. And we're like, I think they're going to fight. I think we should go in.
Like, what's happening?
It's like, I don't know, like putting oil in the water. You're like, what's going on here?
Right.
He was a unique ingredient for the show that obviously played a big role in it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So season 3 was the longest season in terms of how many episodes there were, with 30 episodes that season. Was the cast and crew excited to have such a longer season, or what was it like behind the scenes in that decision making?
I'm not sure that it all came out. And I don't think they said at the front of the season, and now it's 30. I know with some of the cast, they do a thing where MTV will call it season 2, but their deal might just call it season 1 still because of the length of the amount of episodes they're in. I don't know the machinations of that fully, but I know we had 10 the first season and then 12, and then we went really long. I think the second part of the third season, it wasn't a surprise, but it wasn't an announcement like in September or December, whenever we started. The first few weeks you're shooting, you're kind of trolling for story. You're not like, hey, I went to Hawaii and fell in love. Can we shoot that? I'm like, we're not going to Hawaii and you've broken up with that person or whatever it is. And so, and when I was talking about the support, like that costs money. And you can't shoot a whole week and not get some footage out of it because you're losing money that way. But The Hills was successful enough that we were given leeway to find our way. But also with that, as you start shooting more, you find the stories are piling up. And when they start piling up, you start thinking episodes. And so there might be a storyline that's Heidi gets a job or gets a new job or quits a job. And that could be going on at the same time as Whitney's met somebody and is going out on a date. But you might not want to put them into the same episode, even though they're happening at the same time. So that's one way we got longer. More stuff was happening. They were also more comfortable filming with us, and so we would get more story. But the crew wasn't like high-fiving, I've got a job till the fall, but it also wasn't, it was like, oh, that's cool, good to know, let's keep working, because it's a very intense job. You start on Monday and Tuesday are figuring out what you're shooting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, sometimes Saturday. Then it all starts again. There's a ton of people who are there helping you. You're like, okay, I guess we need a ballroom for this. Do we have the money for a ballroom? Can we get a ballroom? Is it a ballroom that looks good? Is it one they would go to? There's all these things. And then after all of that work, someone will be like, why don't we just turn it into a lunch?
Oh my gosh.
So when you were in the field working with the cast, did you have a favorite cast member to work with or a least favorite cast member to work with?
They're all still alive, right? So, and I'm a diplomat. Here's what it is. Here's I enjoyed working with our 4 main cast members a lot because when you're shooting with them, they're hip to it all. Meaning, we would film dinners, and sometimes they'd be long, and sometimes they'd be interesting, sometimes they wouldn't. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I would say part of the joy of shooting with people is, oh, this is going to make the show, okay? And so there were some storylines, like Audrina went on a lot of dates that I'm sure we didn't air. So it's possible to be sitting at an Audrina date and be like, no. But we also turned the tiniest little moments, like she dates a guy, they go to, where do they go? They go to
is it the Mexican
Was this the Mexican
restaurant?
guy?
Yeah. Thank you for reminding that. That was a painful date to be on. And we were feeling for Audrina, we were feeling for the guy. And we also thought, I saw almost nothing in this date that would work. But, we turned it into I love a salad or whatever the hell it was.
I think
he was just a creep. I don't know.
Yeah, I think answering your phone in the middle of a date is pretty pretty good television.
I enjoyed it all. There were some, in the first year when you were shooting with Brian and Jordan, like back to the 2 dude scenes, you knew it might not air. So it wasn't, it's like any job. There are really enjoyable parts of it. There are parts that are a challenge. I think when you're shooting, part of the challenge too is in the back of your head, it's like, okay, how is this going to help the show? And am I looking at Lauren in the way that I want the scene to go? Like, even though she is the hero, it's not like it's always, rainbows and flowers for her. And so you want to make sure you have enough to tell a story that's meaningful about her. We would do that with other cast members too, I'm just saying the one I'm remembering a few dates and a few scenes with Lauren that were really, it's like, oh, that was really good. You left it and thought, oh, I really enjoyed that.
So looking back at your time on the Hills, is there something that you're most proud of? And then we wanted to know if you have any regrets from your time of working on the show. We need the rose and the thorn,
wow. Is that the phone? I have to go. Regrets. There's nothing that made the air that I thought, oh, we shouldn't be shooting that. And I can't think of anything we cut that I felt that way too. There are times when you're shooting and you as an audience thinks this must be incredibly uncomfortable. And at times it is. But you also say, this is the job. I'm not here to interrupt it. I'm here to try to tell a good story. And in terms of things I loved when we did stuff with fashion. I loved going to Teen Vogue. Mm-hmm. That was really, really enjoyable. It was a very controlled shoot. Vogue has a lot of rules about where you can be, where you can't be. And it was very, but within that arena, you knew what you were doing and you got to see everything. So
we loved watching those scenes too. Like we never got to see the behind the scenes stuff. And so the Hills really gave us that insight.
Yeah. I mean, what's the name of the woman from Glossier?
Oh, Emily.
Yeah, Emily the intern,
Emily
right?
The intern, yeah.
That was fascinating. Like seeing her in. I mean, I know it's all before, and no one thought, oh, yeah, she'll probably own $1 billion company. But she was very much she was the intern from New York, and Vogue was very much like, this is how our interns behave. And I remember enjoying that too. But all the Vogue stuff was fun, especially when Amy Astley came out to LA for events, and it was just, it was a fun. I met Andre Leon Talley.
I love that
one
for you.
thing. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
So next we have some really specific questions for you about whether things were real or produced. And we were kind of hoping you could give us just quick answers for these.
Sure,
and if you don't remember, you can say pass. So number one is in season 1, Heidi, Audrina, Jordan, and Brian, when they crashed the Young Hollywood party, was that real or not real?
I'm going to say real. It was slightly produced, but it wasn't produced to hey, go wreck Lauren's night.
Okay. And then were Lauren and Brody really into each other?
Lauren and Brody? I know they had been, but I don't know that they were while we were shooting. So they were friends, and I think there might have been more at some point. It wasn't, but I don't think they weren't going out when we were shooting, as far as I know.
And then did Lauren and Audrina really have a falling out because of Justin Bobby?
Did they? They had a falling out. I don't know that it was because of Justin Bobby. I guess that's what we made it seem like in the show. Yeah.
And did Lauren and Justin Bobby really hate each other?
Oh, I don't think so. No, I think I always thought she was amused by him. He cut Audrina's hair originally, and that's how we met him. And she thought he was sort of a funny guy, just like that combat boot at the beach line was hers.
Yes.
You guys fooled us, man. I really thought they just liked each other.
I didn't get that while we were shooting. No, no.
Did production know anything about Spencer and Heidi starting the sex tape scandal?
No.
That was a surprise to you guys.
Very much so.
And then last of these rapid fire questions is, did Lauren really ruin her dress in Paris with the curling iron, or was that a producer?
I wasn't in Paris. I hate to say that, but I wasn't. So I do not know. There were enough real things that happened that we made television about. We didn't, no one made Whitney fall down the stairs on TV. We weren't. Yeah, we were manipulating things, but not. I would say most of the bad things were real. you know? I mean, it's the, oh, are they going out, like Lauren and Brody moments where, you know, if we have two people at a dinner, we can make it seem like they like each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a secret, I guess.
That was amazing. I
Yeah,
love
that was
that. Were you asked to work on The Hills New Beginnings, and would you have been interested?
I wasn't, and well, you know, they were doing. I think they consciously got almost no one from the first season, from the first show. Adam DeVello wasn't involved in the reboot of it, and to me, it's Adam's show. So without him, it didn't seem like the right thing.
Yeah, and it showed. It showed.
They told their stories differently. Let's say that. I ran into a couple of them, and they were, you know, I think their experience, at least what I heard from these two cast members, was their experience on the first season was much more enjoyable. I mean, even if they're looking back at it nostalgically, I think they felt less controlled, which was that was really nice to hear.
We took a look at your IMDb and we saw that you've had a long career being a producer for reality shows, working on things like Taking the Stage, Big Rich Atlanta, Real Housewives of New York City, and then The Double Shot of Love with DJ Pauly D and Vinny, to name a few. So I'm curious, what got you started in reality TV and what's kept you in this industry?
Well, I was working at MTV as an assistant. We were in a big high-rise tower in Universal City. Down the hall was Buna Murray, who created Real World, John Murray and Mary Ellis Bunham. And it was the second season, I think, when they were in Los Angeles. I feel like that's what it was. And they were doing a spin-off show called Road Rules. And I got a job on the pilot of that, which was really exciting because then I didn't have to be at the desk as an assistant. It was for another person at MTV who I liked, but I wanted to be in the field. So I got a job on the pilot for Road Rules, and then they hired me for the first season, and then I worked on 3 seasons of that too. And then from there, it just evolved. This is in the mid 90s. You know, there was no Survivor. There was no Real World of here's how to have a reality television career. It was just shows seemed to come. I had a lot of success at MTV. It, you know, as I'm sure you guys know, it's work is about relationships, and that's most of the people I know worked at MTV, and so then I got other jobs there. And then it just kept going. And then, you know, ultimately you do enough of them, they let you run one. And if that goes okay, you can run more. After The Hills, I left The Hills. We didn't know how long it was going to go at all, but it was a big deal. And it had just, you know, I think it'd been on the cover of Rolling Stone, like in maybe April or May of 2008. And just before that, I mean, it had been huge. It was getting huge. I got offered a job as a showrunner. So it was a promotion on a show for Bravo called the Rachel Zoe Project. And I was really excited about that because of all the fashion, which was very cool. It was an interesting deal working with Rachel and Taylor and Brad and her husband too. It was like, oh, this is a new show. I'll take the things I learned from The Hills and morph them into the Rachel Zoe Project.
Very cool.
I guess
that's cool.
It was, I enjoy it. It's, you know, there's a lot of, like any job, there are things you really like about it, you know? And I do like it.
And if you're allowed to say, what kinds of projects or shows are you working on these days?
Well, currently I'm teaching a class on reality television at CSUN, Cal State University of Northridge. In fact, we just ended this week. That was my first class, and I'm going to teach it again in the fall.
We'd love to take it.
I'd love to take it as well.
Well, if it were online, you could, but I'm sure you can see if you can get into CSUN, and then you can take it. I really enjoy it. You know, it's It's a little different than obviously producing. So I haven't since I'm trying to think since I guess Floribama Shore was the last one I was working on. So it's not like I have things in the pipeline that I'm thinking about. If more shows come along and I'm available, great. But if not, I'm truly enjoying the teaching side.
And do you like to watch reality shows? What kind do you watch?
Certain reality shows I do. I mean, I think Adam DeVello is a really sincerely a smart guy, and I really like his shows. So I watch Selling Sunset and many of its offshoots. I'm not up to date on it, but I do like watching it. I find it, to me, it's another evolution of The Hills. I mean, in the storytelling and the beauty of it. I'll watch Housewives sometimes. I really like Below Deck. Think other things. That's about it. I guess I'm more of a docuseries person, and I like leaning into the world of Bravo. But it's, you can, it's a quagmire. You can get stuck in there too. And then when somebody's shooting shows that I know and they say something about it. Also, my wife is a producer, and I always watch her shows. She made Cupcake Wars, Halloween Wars, Holiday Wars.
Oh, fun.
She has a new show that's on Hallmark called Finding Mr. Christmas with Jonathan Bennett. Let's see what else. Oh, there's a really cool show on Netflix that you guys might like called School of Chocolate. They only made one season, but it's really good.
That's awesome.
We'll have to check it out.
I know. I'm like listing this in my head.
Well, there's too much to watch all of it. I'll say that. I hope.
So we have one more question after this one, but first we wanted to ask, where should our listeners go to follow you? And is there anything that you'd like to promote right now?
Oh, that's kind. They can find me on Instagram at Hi Andrew Perry, HI, and then my name. No, I'm. If any listeners are going to CSUN, sign up because it's always nice to have a full class.
Yeah.
So our podcast is called Millennial TV. So we always like to end our podcast with this question, which is, what is one thing you miss from the 2000s?
Oh, man. Like, could I say Blink 182? No, I'm kidding.
You could.
Yes, yeah.
I don't miss them. I joke with friends that I could talk about The Hills forever. And so to me, The Hills forever is the thing that I think about from that time period. How's that?
Absolutely. I agree with you. We're on the same page.
I don't miss it nostalgically or even think a reboot or another reboot is the way to go. But it was a different time, and it was all pre-real social media. And so you could tell stories. In later seasons, you were telling older stories because us or other paparazzi outlets had the story before it would air. But I really enjoyed that. And I mean, again, it's nice to have, a cultural phenomenon that you worked on isn't a bad thing.
Totally. Thank you for you and to all the cast and crew for making it
yes.
Available for all of us to watch because it definitely raised us.
I watch this show constantly. It's really sad.
Oh, really?
But
it isn't. I think it's like apologies to people who read, but I find it like rereading a book. Because it is.
You always find something new.
We spent a lot of time on, whatever it is, 24 minutes of television. I mean, that's sort of one of the secrets of The Hills is being a half-hour show, too, is really, it's a luxury. Because you're telling a few stories very quickly and you need to condense and concentrate your story. And, know that everything you're watching that makes you laugh now, we were laughing about while we were making it. Because we were, you would sit in the bay and watch a cut and think this is the funniest thing, because whatever that scene was, because there are little moments in it that we've polished or drawn your attention to make it seamless, I guess.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's all she wrote today.
Okay.
So
thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you guys.
Yes, thank you so much for giving us your time. That was fantastic, and we learned a lot, and I think our listeners are going to be super stoked to hear what you had to say. So don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast, you guys, and we will see you next week. And we are Millennial TV, and we're Candace, Liz, and Adrian.